Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Today I wanted to relate my own perceptions on what are the top Harley Davidson myths out there today. Please tell me what you think about this list and tell me whether you agree or have a few myths of your own that you'd like to add. Myth number one, Harley Davidson Motor Company cares what people think. This is clearly not true in my opinion. Harley fans and other interested parties trade ideas on video comments and message forums and just about anywhere you care to look about what Harley Davidson Motor Company needs to do to improve their bikes and improve sales. But is anyone in Harley Davidson's decision-making authority listening? To me, the answer is clearly no. As an example, when is the last time you bought a bike from a Harley dealer or had service done there and a manager walks up to you and says, you may be receiving a survey soon about your experience with us today. If there's any reason that you can't give us all 10s, would you please let me know today so that we can correct the situation? I mean, that's happened to me with other brands. I think I would fall over in shock if that happened to me at a Harley dealer, because this never happened in my life. Have you ever gotten up a follow-up phone call or email or any type of survey from Harley Davidson asking about your retail or service experience at the dealership? I haven't. I think Harley generally views its customers the same way a general manager of a sporting team thinks of fans' comments on talk radio. They appreciate the passion, but nothing they say is going to influence the decision making of the front office. Have you ever been contacted by Harley asking your impressions and experiences of one of their motorcycles? I mean, it could be like the people that bought the Livewire. I'd be curious. There's not many of them. Has Harley sent out a survey saying, what do you like about the bike? What needs to be fixed? What problems have you had with it? In any way collected that information, whether it's mail or email? I haven't heard of it. I haven't bought a Livewire, but it hasn't happened with the other motorcycles I bought from Harley either. Hey, can you think of an example where Harley Davidson has acted to correct a situation in its operation based on customer feedback, other than dropping a poorly selling model? If you think of one, please let me know in the comments below. I mean, other companies have been in this situation. I'm thinking of Domino's Pizza as an example. You know, a few years ago, they realized a lot of customers didn't like the quality of their product or service. And Domino's had a ton of commercials saying, hey, we hear you. You basically don't like our pizza. We're going to change that. You know, tell us what you think. We're going to improve our game. I'm not saying Harley's, everything they have done is a mistake. I'm not saying that, but clearly there's a lot of areas. If you just ask anybody, even remotely familiar with motorcycles, they can probably rattle two or three things off that Harley should be doing to improve the customer experience or improve their models in general. Have you ever had a bad experience at a Harley dealership, whether it was how they treated you with the deal or tried to get you with some finance scam or just some other horrible experience like with the service department and the like, and wonder why, in essence, a franchisee could get away with acting like that? I keep hearing about these dealerships being independently owned and operated. That's true, but they're bound by a franchise agreement that's dictated by the parent company, and these dealers can choose to sign on or not. So the parent company can and should exert a lot of control as far as the brand experience for the end user or ultimate customer. All right, let's move on to number two. Harley Davidson motorcycles hold their resale value well. I think this was definitely true in the mid-90s and early 2000s when there's a ton of people wanting Harleys. People were getting on waiting lists. They were putting down deposits. They wait weeks or months to finally get their motorcycle. In some cases, if they changed their mind, they would lose the deposit. They were paying well over MSRP. But now I think a new Harley owner can expect their bike to depreciate around 40% in the first 4 years of ownership. I showed an example of this in my recent video, Harley Davidson's used bike problem. This situation with rapid depreciation isn't going to get any better anytime soon, in my opinion, as the number of Harley riders really start to age out in the next few years. But I will say that the depreciation rates of Harley Davidson motorcycles are in line with depreciation rates of other brands. It's just not the low rate of depreciation that people have kind of grown to expect or think is out there. Just those days are gone. So again, if you buy a new bike today, Harley or otherwise, it's probably going to be worth half its purchase price in about 4 years. Myth number 3, Harley Davidson motorcycles are made in the USA. While it's true that the large cruisers and touring bikes sold in the US are also assembled in the United States, those bikes contain a lot of foreign-made components, components made in China, Mexico, Japan, Italy, Austria. For overseas markets, some Harleys are also assembled overseas, such as in Thailand and most recently in India. It's not really unexpected because we're all part of a global economy these days, and companies like Harley Davidson have to be competitive. It just makes it harder for Harley to pivot to overseas sourcing or overseas vehicle assembly when they've traded so many years on their American heritage and tradition. For example, while they were getting ready to shut down their assembly plant in Kansas City, Missouri, a plant that received millions of dollars in tax incentives in order to operate, Harley Davidson was ramping up vehicle production in Thailand. Myth number 4, Harley Davidson motorcycles are unreliable. While top reliability ratings go to Yamaha and Honda, Harley Davidson reliability compares favorably with other motorcycle manufacturers. I think part of this perception of lower quality is due to the increasing plastic content of some of their big touring bikes. I don't think this is necessarily a quality issue, as manufacturers are trying to increase the fit and finish to improve the overall appearance of a bike, reduce weight, and improve fuel economy. Oddly enough, I just had to replace the plastic fascia around my rear fender when I was backing out of the garage and I accidentally bumped the front tire of my son's motorcycle. And it cracked that fascia piece, and it's going to cost me $130 to replace it because it's a plastic part. It has to get painted to match the color of the rest of the bike. So is that a quality issue or is it a design issue? An old Harley would likely have had a chrome-plated steel fender, but I don't think that means the overall quality and reliability of a new Harley is lower compared to an older model. Although many of you have commented that you think quality has gone down with the newer bikes. I think it's just kind of different design, different functionality. To me, to a large extent, the inaccurate perception that Harley Davidson motorcycles are unreliable goes back to the AMF days, and of course, their rates of problems are much higher than they are today. But even with that reputation, which is no longer fair to be applied today, the AMF ownership did allow Harley Davidson to survive and continue to operate today. So there's definitely some trade-offs there, but I think overall a positive outcome. Myth number 4, I think this is a pretty controversial one, so feel free to fire up the comments section. Harley Davidson needs to lower prices to boost their sales volume and recapture their glory days of the mid-90s to early 2000s, or to mid-2000s. In fact, Harley Davidson is going the other direction. They're cutting production and raising prices. They've even stated that they want to be viewed as a premium brand. So there's no way they're going to go to a high-volume, low-margin operation anytime soon, if ever. In the short term, I think it makes sense for Harley to focus their sales on high-priced, higher-margin bikes. But the problem is, by eliminating cheaper bikes and more entry-level bikes, they're likely cutting off their source of future customers for the higher-end bikes down the road. Myth number 5, Harley Davidson needs to stop catering to wealthy, older bikers and get back to their blue-collar roots. Again, this ties in with the previously mentioned myth number 4, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. Also, you have to ask yourself whether the company currently would have much chance of survival if they lost these so-called wealthy customers. Myth number 6, Harley Davidson motorcycles are overpriced. Harley Davidson motorcycles have very high quality paints and finish, in my opinion, and classic styling. Their price actually compares favorably with other large displacement motorcycles. Performance comparisons with other motorcycles, such as a Honda Goldwing, are not accurate comparisons, as these are vastly different styles of motorcycles, and it's up to the individual preference, in my opinion, as to what type of riding experience a person is looking for. Being able to ride a motorcycle all day and be very comfortable doing it, like I have, 600 plus days on my Street Glide Special, is in fact one type of performance parameter. Performance isn't just about acceleration, braking, and handling alone. So it boils down to the type of performance a bike provides relative to the type of riding experience that is sought. For example, sport bikes are ridden to a much higher engine RPM to produce their power, whereas a Harley V-twin is producing its power at much lower RPM and more realistic street rideable speeds. In other words, the power of most sports bikes is left unused, or should be left unused, in most real-world street riding scenarios. So again, for street riding, how meaningful are the top-end performance numbers anyway, unless you're doing a comparison among bikes that deliver a similar riding experience? This is like comparing the performance of a minivan to a sports car. I mean, those vehicles have vastly different design objectives and rider experiences, or driver experiences in those cases. Myth number 7. All of this doom and gloom about Harley Davidson going over a cliff is just talk. They've been around for 117 years, and they'll be around for another 117 years. There's been a lot of talk, including on this channel, criticizing their recent management decisions. Their sales have been in drastic decline well before the events of 2020 occurred. Soon they'll be down to sales totals that they had 25 years ago. It's only natural to wonder if they're making the right moves as a company with recent changes in leadership and on-again, off-again new model introductions like the Bronx Street Fighter or the sales failure of the Livewire electric motorcycle. Also, just because a company's been around for a long time certainly doesn't guarantee their survival. In fact, I think the opposite case can be made. When a company's been in business that long, it gets harder and harder for them to innovate. Look at all of the recent 100-year-plus companies that have recently filed for bankruptcy protection, like Sears and J.C. Penney's, who were well into their decline before the start of 2020. Myth number 8. Harley Davidson is or was owned by Kawasaki. The fact is they've never been owned by Kawasaki. The story got started as an April Fool's prank a few years ago and got traction on the internet. So, do you agree with my takes on these myths? Do you have any myths about Harley Davidson that I have not covered? Please let me know in the comments section below, and if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe and be looking for future videos. Thanks very much.